So again, we're going to be talking about spiders of the forest today. And some of you may be like, ooh, spiders, yay. And some of you might be like, spiders, because we've all had our fair share of scares from spiders. We have a lot of movies and folklore and things that make us kind of wary of them. But I think that spiders are pretty incredible. They have a lot of myth and mystery around them, but in actuality, if you get close and learn about them, they're kind of cute. They're very charismatic, hugely important to our world. And on the whole, spiders can be pretty beautiful, even adorable. So here, this is a jumping spider. Up close, you can see it's got some beautiful eyelashes. And, most spiders are going to be kind of reticent to get close to you. They are like, oh, you're something big and scary. They'll stay away from you, but you can usually observe them pretty safely, watch what they're doing, enjoy their behaviors, and get to know them a little better. But in addition to being cute and cuddly, yes, I said cuddly, spiders can be extraordinarily beneficial. So beyond those eight legs, they have a purpose in our ecosystem. Now, we say, yay, they're beneficial, but I just want to say that, we don't want to just like a species just because it's beneficial. Aldo Leopold once said that last word in ignorance is that a person who says of an animal or plant, what good is it? If the land is good, then all parts are good, whether we know why or not. And so, just because you might not know a purpose of a spider or an insect or other creature doesn't mean it's not good and has value. But fortunately for us, I can attribute some benefit and value to spiders. So, for those of you who say, well, a lot of people say this about mosquitoes, like, why do we have mosquitoes? What purpose do they serve? Even mosquitoes have a purpose. And so here with our spiders, they are predators, expert bug zappers. So they're helping to keep our populations under control and in balance, which is very important to make sure we don't have any outbreaks or overexplosion of populations that could cause damage in other ways. They can even be soil conditioners. A lot of our spiders are ground dwelling, um, ground running hunters on the ground. They don't have webs. They dig burrows in the soil. And so in that way, they can help to turn over soil or bring some of that leaf litter and other material that's decomposing on the top kind of in closer contact with the soil so it could become that rich organic humus layer in our soil. And of course, they provide food to others and they can even provide resources to other creatures that rely on them. So as I mentioned, they are beneficial predators, and so their predatory services are kind of the key here. Spiders can account for up to half of the predator biomass in a forest. And so today we are talking about spiders in in the forest and woodland areas. So it's not hard to say that they are chief among the small predators of pests and other insects and arthropods in our woods. Worldwide, there are over 42,000 spider species from 110 families, and there are 68 families and approximately 3,807 species in North America alone, not including Mexico. So this video here is showing a spider on a sheet web and it's attacking a ant, kind of striking it with its fangs and then moving away. So this one is not wrapping it up in silk. So some spiders do not wrap up their prey in silk. It's just pouncing and trying to paralyze it. So here in Ohio, we mentioned, this large amount of different spiders in our North American area. Ohio Spider Survey found that there are around 682 species of spider in Ohio. Now, where are we finding them? All over. Roughly 19% of all North American spider species are found in crops eating pests. So think of grasshoppers and locusts, moth caterpillars and adult moths that are laying eggs, flies, beetle pests. And so anyone scouting a field can attest to getting a spider web in the face from time to time between the rows of corn. So they're very common there. Studies have estimated that there can be 1,000 to over 500,000 individuals per acre of grassland. And some spiders have even become closely associated with us and our buildings. So we have spiders that are very commonly found in and around homes. Some spiders can only be found in buildings and dwellings, and they don't survive well out in the wild any longer. But here today we are talking about spiders in the woodland area. So indeed, they are in our forests. One study cited that there's an estimated 8,000 to 930,000 spiders per acre of forest. And so there's lots of nooks and crannies for spiders to take advantage of, from the leaf litter and ground layers up into trees, stream sides. They're all able to make those different areas home. Richard Bradley, who is the instructor of the spider course at Stone Lab, is also a excellent resource and author of spider books. He is a spider expert, and in his book, In Ohio's Backyard Spiders, um, he talked about forest species being more common in the southeast, in the unglaciated portion of the state, and field and open country species are more commonly found in the northwest glaciated parts of the state. And that kind of makes sense. In the areas in southeastern Ohio where there's lots of forests, that's kind of in that Appalachian area where they didn't get glaciated and stripped away. There's just more forest naturally. And so if there's more forest habitat, there's going to be more forest species there who have had time to establish and evolve. But we do have our species in forested wooded areas in the Northwest as well. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg scenario because naturally there's more forest down there. So they're well suited for woodland living. But before we get into it, we're going to start with a crash course of Spider 101. Now, I mentioned I am a cat lady, so anytime I can compare a spider to a cat, I'm going to do it. So meow, just kidding, I'm a spider. This is another jumping spider, which are fairly cute. Not as much of a woodland species, but very common in our gardens and outside in our yards, in fields and butterfly gardens, pollinator gardens. You often find a lot of jumping spiders. So let's talk about spider taxonomy real quick. So they're in the kingdom Animalia, phylum Arthropoda. Arthropod means jointed foot, and it's going to have this exoskeleton that's hinged, jointed, and segmented. Because of this hard exoskeleton, it has to be hinged like a suit of armor, segmented so that it can have movability. So in our insects, our roly-polies, our potato bugs, lobsters, crabs, they've got this hard outer shell and jointed appendages. So whether they have antenna, pinchers, legs, they're going to be jointed to help with that movement like a suit of armor. The subphylum Chelicerata is where spiders reside, and that means they possess chelicerae. So chelicerae are the first appendage of a spider, and they're essentially the mouth parts and jaws. So this whole column, this tube, is hollow, and then it's attached to the fangs at the end. And those are hollow because they're often connected to venom glands, and that's how the venom is administered through the fangs. Now, not all spiders have venom, but they will have these chelicerae mouth parts in the front. Chelicerae may also be used for grooming in other arthropods, pseudoscorpions, opiliones. Other arthropods could have the chelicerae components as well. Other creatures that are in the Chelicerata include horseshoe crabs, sea spiders, and of course our arachnids. So now we're moving on to class Arachnida, and some people think arachnid equals spider, which it does, but there's also other creatures that are arachnids as well. So here we see pseudoscorpions and ticks, mites, scorpions. They're all going to be arachnids as well. Mites and ticks, daddy long legs, they all are in the class Arachnida. They are going to have 8 legs, no antenna, and 2 body regions in our arachnids. Then we're going to be in the order Araneae, which are the true spiders. And then the families, Ohio has 40 families of Araneae total, but there's about 20 families that are really common, and about 93% of all spiders in our region are going to fall into those 20 families. The Araneae, the true spiders, are the largest order of the arachnids, and so there's the most diversity and species in those groups. If we're going to define a spider, it's going to have 8 legs with 6 to 8 eyes arranged differently, and the eye arrangement is often a way we can identify different species. There'll be 2 body regions. The cephalothorax is the head, and then the abdomen is the belly area. They are going to have an exoskeleton, again, with those jointed appendages to help with movement and flexing, and they will have no antenna and no wings. Because they have an exoskeleton, they will have to shed their outer exoskeleton to molt and grow larger. And so oftentimes you might find a lighter colored spider that may have just shed its exoskeleton and it's starting to harden off, expand its body, and then harden that new exoskeleton. So they have to molt to grow. Another great feature of our spiders is that they have the ability to spin silk. So spiders have 2 to 4 pairs of spinnerets that are on the base of the abdomen, and these have many spigots, and those spigots exude silk from those silk glands. Spider silk is liquid when it starts, and then as it is exuded and pulled out, it kind of goes through a pH gradient from the silk gland out into the air that starts to harden it, and then as it's pulled out, it forms those strands. So this is an Australian spider, so obviously not in Ohio, but it has a great picture of, I'm sorry, a spider butt to show you those 6 spigots arranged around the spider silk as it's coming out. So most commonly, there will be 3 pairs of spinnerets as shown here. Spider silk is really flexible, it can be 4 times stronger than bone, half the strength of steel. You may have heard about the idea of using spider silk. If we could figure out a way to create it ourselves, it could be stronger than Kevlar. We could make ropes out of it, but make them really thin and strong. Lots of research going into what can we use spider silk for. Now, unlike the comics and the movies, spiders don't shoot silk. They're not out there going pew, pew. They must pull it out with their legs, or they have to attach it by laying it down with their butt and then walking away from it to kind of pull and stretch it like you were kind of pulling dough. So there's no web shooting here, and that's kind of just a myth of spiders. And they can use these spinnerets to have different kinds of silk. So it's not all one size, it's not all one texture. The different spigots can make different kinds of webbing. They could be sticky or not sticky, thin or thick, and they can use those different types of web strands to build webs and capture prey. They might line retreats or burrows with silk. They create their egg sacs with silk, but they can make different kinds of silk with those same spinnerets. So this helps with building our classic web design. As you see here in the picture, this is a classic spoke and spiral design of our orb weaving spiders. And you can see some of them are labeled non-sticky, and then the sticky threads are in the spiral here. And so a spider can use this and knows that the radial ones are going to be not sticky, and that can help them to crawl around the web without themselves getting stuck. And it can help them with creating the web they need with the strength and qualities depending on what their goal is. Some of these threads might be thicker than others, and that can help with reinforcing it and having a really strong web, even in storms and in wind. Another feature on our classic webs is the stabilimentum. So you can see this line here in the middle. This is often a zigzag of denser webbing. It might be overlaid and overlaid, so it's very thick. It's often white, can be reflective. And this is considered a decoration. We are not quite sure what its function is. There are theories. Some of them could be potentially for reinforcing the web. It could be just an area where the spider resides and kind of sits on. Some of those stabilimentums are filled with trash or the expended bodies of their prey. And so here in this picture, it looks like this one is a trash line that has some of the debris built up inside of it. And so we're not quite sure what that is, but it is described as a decoration, but it may have some function that helps with that web. Interestingly, there's not just, again, one type of web. Some spiders create cribbolate webbing. And so you can see here in this picture another Australian species, but it does a great job to emphasize what this cribbolate webbing is. It's sticky without glue properties. It's more like a Velcro. And so these insects have a cribellum, which is like a plate with thousands of tiny spigots and holes attached to it. And they excrete nanofine strands of webbing that clump and tangle together. And then there's a comb on the rear legs called the calimistrum that can tease those fine threads of silk into this kind of tangled web where it acts like Velcro, and just the texture and wooliness of the web will stick to itself and other surfaces. Even if it looks smooth to us, even the tiniest, roughest surface can stick to this cribbolate webbing. So very interesting how webbing is used. So we talked about creating webs. They can also create egg cases, anchor lines, drag lines, and they can also use it for ballooning. 54% of North American species use a web to capture prey, but that leaves about 50% more that are using webs for other purposes. So ballooning is the act of pulling out some of their webbing, some of their strands, and letting the wind carry them, and then they float off. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here the spider is actually feeling the wind, and then the wind is catching the silk as it comes out the spinnerets, pulling it taut, and then off she flies. And so spiders have a little organ on their legs called a trichobothria, which has very dense, sensitive hairs. And so they can pick up vibrations with those hairs, help them sense when there's prey near, or maybe a female near or a male. But also they can pick up wind movement and direction. And again, out comes the silk, the wind catches it, and whoof, off she goes. There can be thousands of spider in the air up to a mile high. One entomologist, Gilbert Wadbauer, he calculated that during day in May, there can be a 1 mile area extending 20 feet up from the ground and 500 feet up to 500 feet. And that area can have up to 32 million arthropods. And so that's arthropods. That could be insects and other flying critters, but also included in that are spider. This amounts to about 6 arthropods per 10 cubic yards of air. And so that can be a lot of little ballooning spiders, whether they're a newly hatched egg sac that's been wafting in the breeze or spiders trying to spread. So here in these pictures, you can see little white reflective spots in the sky. And so these were pictures taken from their study where they can see that the ballooning spiders were taking off, and you can see them kind of reflecting in the light. So you might be out on a nice, beautiful day looking in the sky and think, oh, there's some dandelion fluff in the air. Maybe it's cottonwood fluff. Well, it could also be a spider ballooning off into the distance. Charles Darwin actually noted that there were spiders that would waft in onto the Beagle, the ship he was on, miles offshore. And so these spiders can really get far with their ballooning technology. And when they land, often they'll leave streamers behind of that silk that they used to balloon. And so as they land, you can see these kind of strips of silk that get left behind. And you might find this early in the morning. You might see this kind of covered in dew in your lawn, and that could be a sign that there were spiders ballooning into the area. Spiders are often the first to recolonize a disturbed area, whether it was a disaster, a fire, a flood. For example, there was one study that found that spiders were among the first invertebrates to return to Mount St. Helen after it erupted in 1980. And so that ability to balloon and be taken by the wind into areas helps them spread and establish. So I mentioned there's different types of webbing, but there are also different types of webs themselves, depending on the species or group of spiders. So the first type I'll describe is a sensing web. And this uses kind of trigger lines to help the spider to know when there's prey around. And so here there's a little tunnel that the spider is retreating into. And if anything is to walk across some of these trigger lines, that will signal a vibration to the spider and it'll know to come out, pounce, and get its food. This is a common sheet web or funnel web that you might see around your home, especially in lawns and in shrubs around the home. These are sheets that might not even be sticky. And the spider here is going to be hiding in the retreat in this tunnel. Some of these do not have funnels. They might just be hanging out on the side of the sheet or underneath it. And then when a creature, an insect, another arthropod falls on it, crawls on it, it will trigger them to come out and pounce. Sometimes these spiders will put intercept lines above the sheets so that as an insect flies in, it'll get clotheslined and go and fall down to the sheet where that spider can come out, pounce on it, maybe wrap it up in silk, maybe like our earlier video, just hits it with its fangs to paralyze it, and then it can feed on it and inject its saliva to dissolve the prey from the inside out, and then slurp up that tasty little Slurpee. So this web was created by a common grass spider, or also known as funnel weaving spiders. It's really common around homes and our lawns and shrubs, and it's often confused for a wolf spider. And so this one can be a home invader in fall, just looking around for mates, and sometimes it ends up in your house. So one key way you can find out if this is a wolf spider or a funnel weaver is, can you see its spinnerets? And so here on this picture, you can see this kind of pointed end. Those are the spinnerets sticking out past the abdomen. And so if you can see the spinnerets and you're finding it in the house or around some of these sheet webs, chances are it's going to be a funnel weaver, a grass spider, and not the wolf spider that you think it is. So we already mentioned orb webs and how they're constructed. So again, this is kind of the traditional stereotypical web of a spider. It's got a flat design with a spoke and spiral pattern. This gives you a nice closer look at what that stabilimentum looks like. So here's the classic zigzag. You can see how it's thicker and white and reflective. And so this again is decoration. Maybe it's a purpose, we're not sure. But this is a classic black and yellow garden spider. This is one you again will find around the home, not as often in our wooded areas, but a very common find in our pollinator gardens or vegetable gardens. They like humid areas. They might be found in a field near creeks and streams, again, where that humidity is high. She can get very large, and so as they become gravid and full of eggs, their abdomens can swell and they can become big and large. But here she's just a sit and wait predator. She's just going to sit there, not be bothered by you staring at her, pointing, oh my gosh, taking pictures. And then as things intercept into her web, she can wrap them up and feed on them. But not all webs are that clean and pretty. There are space weavers that are making kind of three-dimensional cobweb-like webbing. They're kind of hard to take pictures of, so I had my husband stand behind this web, and you can see how it's kind of all over the place. They're often called hackle or hackle mesh webs as well. And so these can be confused for cobwebs, kind of just filling in spaces. The spider might rest in the middle of that mess or off to the side and then come in as needed. Now, we've gone over our classic 101. What about their webs? So let's get into some examples in a wood near you. So I have to start because you're all thinking about it. Get it out of the way, wolf spiders, because as an entomologist and an extension professional, I get questions all the time about wolf spiders because everything is a wolf spider to the uninitiated. You see a large spider, it might be fuzzy, and that's kind of what we usually jump to is it a wolf spider? But you'd think this was the only spider in Ohio based on how people think about it. Certainly not. But there are a lot of wolf spiders, and let's talk about some examples. So they're in the family Lycosidae. These are ground hunters. They have burrows that they retreat to. This could be a burrow with a lid or without a lid. They're runners on open ground and in leaf litter. So they're not sitting and waiting in a web. They're going to be actively out hunting, often at night. An interesting feature about our wolf spiders is they have a trapezoidal eye arrangement. And so you can see that the 8 eyes are arranged kind of in that trapezoid shape. And this is one way you can identify a wolf spider. But that means you have to get close enough to see the eyes. And so some of you might be going, I'm happy looking at them from afar, but I encourage you to get up close, maybe take some pictures, or you can zoom in, and that can help you with learning to identify spiders because their eye arrangement can be very helpful. Another interesting features of all spiders is they have a membrane in their eye that reflects light, similarly to a cat. Again, I mentioned, let's compare spiders to cats, and I'm there. So with a flashlight or the flash of your camera, you can get that reflective quality when you're taking pictures or looking for spiders at night. So if you wear a headlamp or have a flashlight when you're on an evening walk or you're out hiking, you may see hundreds of little eyes looking back at you from the lawn, shrubs, or in the woods because their eyes are very reflective and sparkly. So let's dive into our first example, the woodland giant wolf spider or the tiger wolf spider. So same spider, different names. This is a larger wolf spider. The female's body length, and that's the body only, doesn't include the legs, can be 18 to 25 millimeters. And so for comparison, I put this quarter for size. A quarter in diameter is about 24 and a quarter millimeters wide. So you can see that the body length is about the size of a quarter. The males are smaller in a lot of spider species. So here you can see that the male can reach about 18 millimeters. And this is a really common species in our area, in our wooded habitats. The female wolf spider will carry eggs with their spinnerets, so attached kind of to the abdomen on the behind. And then when they hatch, the spiderlings will ride on the back through the summer. This species gets its name tiger wolf spider because of these orange stripes on its legs, and it has an orange stripe down the center of that cephalothorax. You can see it kind of dividing the eyes there in the middle. So that orange striping, tiger, where the name comes from. These are nocturnal hunters, so they'll emerge from their burrow, which is a retreat during the day, and then they'll come out from that and hunt at night. These burrows can be a cool place to shelter from heat, can retain moisture to help them from drying out or desiccating, and a place where they can relax. So this picture is actually not of the tiger wolf spider, but this is actually the Carolina wolf spider, which is the largest wolf spider in North America. This one is going to be more common in open areas and fields than in a wooded area. But you can see here, if you look closely at that picture, she's also carrying those little baby spiderlings on her back there in her burrow. So this spider can get up to 33 millimeters body length, but is another common find in Ohio. Right here in Ohio, we also have a spider known as the purring spider. So this is another wolf spider, but it has a unique feature of communication that's really fun. This is a medium to large spider that's light brown. Its body length for the female can be about 14 millimeters, which is around the size of a dime. It has these dark stripes on its cephalothorax and abdomen that kind of converge into that center waist area. Kind of looks like a constricted letter H. And it's really common in our deciduous forests. But it gets its name because of a unique purring feature. All right. So what you just heard there was a serenade, a courtship behavior of this purring spider. What it's doing is it's rapidly flexing and tapping its pedipalps, which are the second set of appendages on a spider that are used for grooming and reproduction. And so it's flexing them and tapping them to create that brrr noise. And then it's tapping its abdomen on a substrate. So that was that pat, pat, pat you heard. And so they're using the leaf or the wood, whatever they're on the ground floor of the forest, and kind of creating vibrations that are picked up by the sensitive hairs of the female. And if you get close enough in the woods, you can sometimes hear it actually. That video was amplified with software that helped to amplify the vibrations so you could hear it. But they're not hearing it with ears. They're sensing those vibrations that are created by the rapid tapping. So right here in Ohio at the University of Cincinnati, a professor, George Utz, studies the purring wolf spider and its mating behavior. He reported that he would play back videos of the spiders making this rapid patting and tapping and playing the sound. And he had female purring spiders in cages, and he found that the spiders would actually watch the video of these spiders making that sound. So can you imagine all those females in cages being like, whoa, listen to him, check out that guy in the research. So pretty cute behavior there. So again, they're going to be patting those pedipalps. This is a jumping spider, of course, but again, that's an interesting behavior for a spider to exhibit. Our next group of spiders are the trapdoor spiders. So here's an example of a spider burrow. We talked about how wolf spiders create this burrow as well, but this is one that has a quirky lid. That's kind of a hinged lid that closes down and provides that extra protection. So our example of a trapdoor spider today is going to be Ottowan's trapdoor spider. It's pronounced Umidia ottowini is the scientific name. And so it's another large spider. Its body length is going to be 28 to 30 millimeters, but she has uniquely short legs for a spider compared to the body size. So usually we'd think of more long, spindly legs, but hers are kind of short and stout. The male is considerably shorter here. She's about 15 millimeters, and they're dark brown to solid black in color. Here you can see someone has rudely dug her up, but you can see how she's tucked herself down into that burrow and has tucked her little legs in. So they again have this quirky burrow with a quirky lid, and it digs out this burrow using its fangs that are covered in hairs that help increase surface area for scooping out mud and creating that burrow. And then she's able to use her fangs to close the lid and then also hold it down to protect herself. And these are often found along banks in wooded habitat areas. So I have a video. This is from Richard Bradley, who again is our expert and spider biologist. And you can see how it's pulling the lid down tight with its fangs. But right out, they can come and grab their prey. And so they use that as a place to pounce from, to sneak up essentially on whatever prey is walking by. And she can use those short legs to just grab and pull it back in and feed. Our next group is going to be the Pisaridae. These are some of our nursery and fishing spiders. So there are 14 species in North America, and these are often confused for wolf spiders, again, because of the coloration pattern and size. So again, a lot of times if it's a large spider, we jump to the conclusion it's a wolf spider, when a lot of our large spiders are other species. So there's no solid stripes on the cephalothorax like the wolf spider here, but there's a lot of modeling, and this helps them to blend in with bark and other forest habitats. These are can be extremely large species, especially our fishing spiders, but some of our nursery web spiders can be quite small. They can be hunters from vegetation. Our fishing spiders are often hunting along water. They are usually going to be up on vegetation or bark. Very rare for them to be seen running along the ground like a wolf spider would be. So the fishing spider in this group can also feed in and on water. So they can run across water and use the surface tension to kind of stay above water, but they can also dive into the water to either hide from us if you sneak up on one, or they can also catch small fish, tadpoles, and aquatic invertebrate out of the water and feed on them. So this is one species of fishing spider. This is the dark fishing spider, Dolometes tenebrosus. And these are often found on tree trunks, especially if that tree trunk is in or near water, near streams. And so again, that coloration is really good for blending into bark. These species are also known to wander into homes and buildings when they're out kind of wandering looking for mates, especially if you have water source nearby. They have three W's on their abdomen. So this is how you can identify it. You'll see these wide W stripes on the abdomen that help identify it. And again, the female can be very large, getting up to 26 millimeters. So again, around the size of the quarter, but very long legs. Again, that helps them to kind of get into the water and fish out some of those prey items from the water. But our nursery web spider, which is also in the Pissaridae, is going to have a smaller body and a unique way of taking care of her young, as the name suggests. So this is another forest understory and shrub uh, habitat spider. It holds its legs out front in pairs. So you can see how those two legs on each side are kind of held out front. And it holds its legs there. And sometimes it'll actually rear them up and kind of hold them out like it's feeling along. The body length could be 12 to 16 millimeters. And she can also be found in home gardens. So even though it is a forest living species, it's kind of cosmopolitan. It can be out in those gardens as well. They can be light brown to orange in color, so that's another fun coloration for a spider. But as her name suggests, they get the name because they are very active in parental care. And so the nursery spider will actually carry her egg sac around with her fangs under her abdomen there. And then she will create a nursery out of a leaf by kind of stringing the leaves in half, folding it into a protective kind of tube, and then she'll stay there with the egg sac until they hatch, and then she will protect the new spiderlings within that nursery. And so another interesting behavior for our young spiders. We're going to move on from those nursery spiders. And another distinct spider in Ohio that has a really unique look is the woodlouse spider. This is actually a non-native species. So there's only one species of this family in the US, and it is the woodlouse spider. And it only has 6 eyes, which is unique for spiders. So they can have 6 to 8, but most of them have 8. So this is an example of a species with 6. Again, requires you to get a little up close and personal to see that feature, or a good photo that you can zoom in on. But you can see here that it doesn't have a lot of hairs. It's got a very distinct red cephalothorax and kind of a pale abdomen that kind of reminds me of an engorged tick. They have really big, strong jaws. Those chelicerae are really expanded. And that's because they are feeding on something with a very hard exoskeleton. So here it is a pill bug specialist. And so it feeds on those roly-polies or potato bugs, whatever you call them. And so it is going to need those extra strong, piercing cheliceraean fangs to get through that hard exoskeleton of our roly-polies. They spin a silk retreat to kind of hide within under rocks and logs, and they can often be near homes, but they don't create a web. They don't burrow into their own tunnel the way our wolf spiders, our trapdoor spiders do. So they just make a little uh, retreat spun with silk to hang out in, but then out it's going to be active on the ground hunter looking under logs, under rocks, and areas where potato bugs would be really common. So we're going to take a little break here because we need to break the habit of thinking of those large spiders that alarm us. Because more than half of the species of North America never grow above 3 millimeters in size. We have a lot of very small spiders, especially in our forest habitats, where there's a lot of leaf litter and cracks and crevices and nooks and crannies for them to inhabit. So there are a lot of tiny wolf spiders in the woods. So this is a species of Pyrata, which is only 3 to 5 millimeters in size for their body length. Pyrata minitus is found in woodlands as well as in fields, meadows, and lawns. So it's a very widespread tiny spider that you might never even notice. Here's another species of Pyratus alachuus, and it's made up of 80% of one forest floor sample in Ohio. So researchers out there with pitfall traps, which are cups dug into the ground, they're collecting spiders and other arthropods in the forest. What is the makeup of the arthropods in this area? 80% of the spiders they found were this tiny little species. And so these small spiders can be very prolific in our wooded areas. Another interesting small spider we might find in the forest are in the Haniidae family. These are comb tail spiders. And they're called that because they have this straight line of spinnerets. So instead of having them kind of clustered together in a circle, it's 6 spinnerets across in a line in the shape of a comb. And so they create these ground surface webs that are going to be kind of in between leaves that are laying on the ground. So tiny little sheets of webbing in the decomposing forest floor area. And then they'll be hunting on them, under them, and around them to catch their prey. Another tiny species from the forest is the green-legged orb weaver. And again, very small and you might not even see it. But if you're out there collecting spiders or you've got a butterfly net, you might sweep some of these up, whether it's in a forest or in a grassy area. They have three distinct spots on their abdomen, or three pairs of spots rather. And so you can see these little spots pointed out with the arrows on the back of this one. And again, this was from a sweep net. So someone was in there just sweeping their net in and out of vegetation, and they came up with these tiny little spiders. They create tight spiral webs. And so you can see the picture in the upper photo, a very tight, classic spiraling web. And then they'll crawl down and lay their eggs in leaf litter. But another small 2 to 4 millimeter spider. And of course, this is just one species of a tiny web weaver, but there are many spiders that make use of all the small spaces in our forests. So this is a study that was published in the Michigan Entomologist, just showing the different kinds of places that spider webs were found just in one maple tree. And so they may utilize the space between leaf veins. They may string together two edges of a single leaf to create a space to spin an orb web. And so they're using the same resources differently that can make for quite a diverse canopy of different species using a tree, the trunk, the leaves in different ways. Now, this is one that doesn't make a web at all, and is not a ground hunter necessarily. This is a pirate spider, and they specialize on feeding on other spiders, and they get their name because they're thieves. So this is not her web she's sitting on. This spider eats other spiders, steals their web, steals the contents, and will even eat their egg sac and prey upon other species. She has distinct spines on her legs that can help with ID. And so they're known for having these long spines and then little spines between it and then another long spine. And so it alternates down the leg. So again, another small species, about 5 millimeter body length, really white and black coloration with those distinct spines can help you ID her. So now we're going to go back up and talk about some larger spiders again, and large being a relative term because this one is still only 6 millimeters body length, but some good leg length. The spined Microthena is another example of a classic weaver. And she's got this really great zebra coloration and spines that makes her very interesting to kind of pause and take a look at her web. And so you can see the coloration. She has 8 black points on the top of her abdomen, but the abdomen is described as being cone shaped. And so you can kind of see how that abdomen kind of comes down into a point like a cone. And this species is really common in understories of forest and open woodlands. Oftentimes, she will make use of trails and she will create her nest across an opening in a trail that you can run right into, unfortunately. So a common encounter in our forest trails, often at face height, unfortunately. And they create their webs across that big space by releasing thin, sticky strands of silk and hoping the wind catches it to kind of carry it across to another branch or another leaf. And these are called bridge threads that catch the wind and get caught. And then she can crawl across it and start again to send more threads out until she has spanned the distance of the space she wants to create that web in, and then she can create the full web with the classic spiral. Because those open spaces within a forest are great places for airflow, for flying insects to go in and out and around and to catch their prey. Now, here is a spider that uses that cribbolate webbing I talked about earlier, that kind of Velcro teased and tangled web. This is a triangle spider in the family Uloboridae, and this family actually has no venom. And she's also using this unique webbing. Their body length, again, 2 to 3 millimeters, but they make a large, noticeable web that is going to be pie-shaped. And so the triangle spider makes a triangle web. Common places to find her will be near dead branches, in understory canopy. As you can see, it has these 2 main lines in red. You can see the red arrows kind of pop up there. And then there's 4 radial lines that come out to create that pie. And that's where you're going to make the classic web design. Here is a video about the web and how it uses that cribbolate Velcro technology to capture its prey.
Ashley, is there supposed to be audio?
Oh no, no
Yeah,
audio? Yes, there
there's no
is.
audio.
Okay. So what's happening is the spider is holding the web. And so she holds it tight so that when the food comes in, she can release the web and it springs back onto the prey, and then it tangles up and sticks to itself, sticks to the prey, and then she'll jerk the web so that it collapses and wraps around its prey. So again, she's holding that line tight, and then as the food source comes in and gets stuck originally, she releases it, and the elastic structure of that web folds back in on itself and collapses around the prey. And then she can inject it with her saliva, no venom, and then drink it out like a Slurpee. So the next spider is going to be a bowl and doily spider. And this is going to have a little bowl shape, which is kind of more densely packed webbing. And then there's going to be a doily or kind of like a napkin underneath the bowl. That's kind of a more hackle meshed kind of space web that lines underneath the bowl. This is going to be a common species in understory vegetation. So this is one you could probably find near some transition zone into the habitat next to a forest that might be shrubby and have tall grasses as well. And this is a really widespread species across North America. So they balloon far and wide. This is one that can be ID'd by the web alone because it's got that classic bowl with kind of the paper towel underneath it, the doily underneath it. But you can also identify it from the spider. It's got a very distinct brown and white coloration. Um, so this is a great spider to find as well. I'm running out of time, so I will end skipping the bolus spider by talking about other spider roles. So spiders are important because their webbing is used by birds for their nest. So the silk is used as kind of a glue to put together hummingbird nests, goldfinches, vireos, warblers. They're food for birds. They're also food for other arthropods. So here is a mud dauber wasp. It creates a mud nest and it paralyzes and stuffs that nest full of spiders to feed its young. The mantid fly also relies on spiders to complete its life cycle. And there's some fun research happening around spiders. They're trying to see if venom and silk can be used for other purposes. Can it be helping with pain control? Can it be used for helping with medical conditions? And so we're really interested in seeing what more we can learn from spiders. So when you have seen one ant, one bird, one tree, you have not seen all the spiders either. Any questions? I can happily take those now. I saw some things in the chat. And also, these are the 3 spider books that if you're interested in learning more about spiders, these are the books you want to get.
Awesome, Ashley. Thank you. It just flies by. Like,
It
oh,
did. I was like,
it's
whoa.
already done. All right. So yeah, folks, put your questions in the Q&A as we move along here. So we do have a couple questions in there now. Carolyn is asking, what do the spiderlings eat when they're on the mother's back?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. So possibilities could be that when the mom captures or wraps up the food that they come down and feed to, there might be a period of time where they don't feed until they're a little larger. I'm not sure of the answer of that. Good question.
Yeah, there's another question about what do baby spiders eat? So, okay. I believe there was a question earlier in the chat, some discussion about, do spiders have an impact on ticks at all? Do they hunt ticks at all? Or are they kind of separate?
So that's possible. So we've got some of our hunting species that are going to be on the ground running around. They could find ticks on the ground and feed on them. I don't know that they're necessarily like a specific tick feeder, but if they run across them, yes, they could feed on ticks. I see a question, why do I keep referring to them as a she? That was just the proverb, the pronoun
Oh
I
no.
chose. And so a lot of them are going to be larger and easier to see because they're female when you're looking at webs, but males do have webs as well.
Okay. How long does typically last before having to redone by, I think it's how long do webs last before they need to be redone by a spider.
Sure. Well, there are actually spiders that will take them down each day and remake them. But again, it's just going to depend on how successful they've been capturing things. So if a lot of insects have gotten caught in there and she's wrapped them up, she might need to replace that web regularly. If it's in an area that's not getting a lot of traffic, it might survive longer. But again, some species will actually take them down each day and rebuild them each night.
And then Thomas Jorvie commented, some young spiders eat very small prey, some eat their own siblings.
Oh, definitely. And there's springtails, there's mites, there's very small arthropods out there that can be eaten.
Okay. Oh, Carol or Kale, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, made a comment about trash lands or trash line spiders. I think those are really cool too.
They are trash line spiders. Again, they're going to be wrapping up their prey and then leaving the kind of dead, hollow bits there wrapped up and just making this long line of trash behind with the webbing.
Yeah. Is web spinning ecologically expensive on resources for spiders? It's a good question.
Yeah, oftentimes spiders will consume the web when they're breaking it down again, and so they can recycle it, and so it can be something that they can replenish.
Which is somewhat related to my daughter's question. And she had a question, how or do spiders ever run out of webbing?
Do they ever run out of
Ever run
webbing?
out?
I don't know. I suppose if they don't eat enough, it could be possible that they don't have enough energy to kind of produce it. But I don't know if they can run out. That's a really great question. And
And then
common
both,
lifespan.
yeah.
So oftentimes the males will be only one season. The females can often overwinter as subadults, or through the winter. Some of them can last 2 years.
Awesome. And then we have a question in the chat from Nixie. How have humans impacted spider populations, and how has that impacted other insect overpopulations? That
Mm,
trickle down
I don't
cascade.
have an answer for that. Um, so it's just like other arthropods and insects, our habit of taking over some of their habitat and changing the landscape can affect where they have um, the ability to build webs and live, and have access to food. And I think that's possibly more of an impact than anything because spiders are able to, build their web, pretty much anywhere, but they do have their preferred habitats. And if we do destroy habitat, some of those smaller species that are often in the uh, subfloor and in the leaf litter, those could be easily affected and destroyed as well. So I don't have a number or a research study in mind that explains the downfall of spider populations, but I'm sure that they're being impacted in the same way insects and other arthropods are. And then along with that, their ability to do their services as predators.
Okay. Do we commonly eat small spiders on food from the woods?
Food from the woods. So a lot of people have heard that, we swallow spiders in our sleep, and that's just not necessarily a true problem that we have. Do we have spiders on food we eat from the woods? I mean, most things that you'd get from the woods, like if you were collecting, chestnuts or if you were collecting berries, they'd be washed off when you were cleaning them, hopefully. So I don't think you'd be eating a lot of spiders that way. What should I do with a jumping spider in my home? Well, you can enjoy them. You can keep them as little pets, and people are making terrariums for jumping spiders. Why not? You could get fruit flies from the pet store and feed them if you find them in winter. But otherwise, you can just leave them be. Our homes actually have insects in them, from ants to drain flies to, little things. So they find their way. They can find things to eat on their own. So please do enjoy them. Jumping spiders are becoming a really popular pet nowadays.
They are,
So
yeah. I follow
no
somebody
problem
on
there.
social media who keeps jumping spiders, and she makes them talk, and it is very humorous for me. So
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know.
Just no.
All right. I allow a certain number of basement spiders. That's I was just going to ask that. Basement spiders to remain down there since I am hoping they will get arthropods that are not at all desirable there, like silverfish and other pests I do not actually see but think are probably there. Dot,
Yeah,
dot.
so absolutely. They're in the basement for a reason and they live in the basement just fine. So there are small insects that they can get in the basement that are creeping in, silverfish, drain flies, and they're finding food to eat. So if you
Oh,
can tolerate
centipedes.
them, they're excellent to leave in place.
Yes.
Is it true that some species are indoor spiders and if they're relocated outside could be detrimental? Yes. So we do have species that have evolved to kind of be reliant and associated with homes and buildings, and the shelter therein is important for them. Some of our recluse spiders are not native, and so they are really associated with buildings and structures, and they don't survive well just out in the wilderness. So they don't go building to building and place to place. They're really kind of tucked in to those structures.
Well, I think that's all of the questions. Lots of nice comments about your presentation in the chat, folks.
Thank
Let's
you.
thank Ashley again at the chat if you enjoyed a presentation. Oh, another question just popped up.
Sure.
I found a beautiful large spider in my garden with a large orange abdomen. What might it have been?
Well, it could have been the early stage of the black and yellow garden spider. So they are going to get bigger and brighter as they get bigger and expand their abdomen. There are a couple of orb weavers that have orange abdomens that it could be, and I would recommend trying out the Common Spiders of Ohio Field Guide. It's a free PDF that you can get from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and it has a lot of great pictures for identification. And you can see if it's in there. And that's again a free PDF. You don't have to go buy it, and it might be in there for you to ID it.
That's the one on the right side of the screen, folks.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Well, Ashley, thank you as always. So fun, so informative. We
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
Yeah. Lots of great comments. Folks, I'm going to stop the recording and Kathy's going to pop that continuing education credit into the chat. So again, thanks everybody so much.
All right. Thanks.